Hello again. It's TushyGalore. This is Sunday, February the 15th. And I have come to talk to you about a paranormal subject today. Now, when I was a little child, my dad was way into paranormal stuff, mostly UFOs and cryptids, mostly Bigfoot. He used to get Fate magazine, which I have actually been in. I had like a 2-page little article thing in there with my picture and everything. It's been a while. I wish I could find that issue and hold it up and show it to you, but I have not run across it recently. I was very proud of that moment in my life, because when I was a kid, I very clearly remember these magazines being around. They were just a little digest, little bitty, like Reader's Digest. I don't know if Reader's Digest is even a thing anymore, but back in the late 60s, early 70s, it was Fate magazine was fairly popular, and it's still around. God love it. And I couldn't read. I had no idea exactly what the articles were about, but I wanted to read them so badly because I would sit there and look through them. He kept them by the bedside. My dad didn't have Playboys. Mine had Paranormal magazine, which is kind of cool, really. And I see pictures of like the Bigfoot and the big block of ice that somebody was carting around. And I swear I remember seeing the one that a lot of people remember seeing, but nobody can find it now, which is a photo of some guys with a pterodactyl that they had like kind of nailed up on the side of a barn, and they're standing around with it. And you know, UFO stuff, and I wanted to know it so badly. And so when unfortunately my dad destroyed his whole collection of old Fate magazines, oh my God, I would love so much to have those. But that's a whole other story of why he decided he needed to burn them all in the barbecue pit. He thought they were possessed and bringing demons into our house. But that's a story for another time. And when I got old enough, I started checking out books from the library, from the school library, on paranormal topics. And Mambo, shut up. There are certain topics that used to be talked about a great deal in the paranormal field and in magazines and whatnot. Of course, we didn't have radio programs back then that were to talk about paranormal stuff. It was very fringe. It's like now everybody knows somebody that's a ghost hunter. There's so many TV shows about it. There's so much about the paranormal out there. So many podcasts. I love Darkness Radio. Y'all look that up. Darkness Radio with Dave Schrader. So we have lots of stuff like that available to us now on the whole internet. God love the whole internet. But back then we had the one magazine pretty much and books. And I would go to the public library and I would go to the school library and just get whatever I could. You know, there used to be those whole volumes. It'd be like a 22 book set of books on the paranormal. I have one right up here, actually, that I bought, I don't know, 30 years ago. And those are terrific. Oh my God, I loved them. And one of the topics that used to be talked about a lot in paranormal books and circles and whatnot was mediumship. Because, you know, spiritual mediums were a very popular thing in the Victorian era, turn of the century, and on into probably the 30s or so. But that kind of fizzled out for whatever reason. I think there were too many fakes, and people just couldn't handle it. Didn't know who to believe anymore, so that fizzled. But one of the things that would happen when the spiritualists and mediums would have their seances would be something called an apport. I believe it's A-P-P-O-R-T or A-P-O-R-T, an apport. And what that was, they'd be sitting around the table having their seance, and things would spontaneously fall out of midair and fall into the table. It could be a coin, it could be a piece of jewelry, it could be a flower. There were instances where flowers were just coming out of the air and falling all over the tabletop. Fake? Maybe. I don't know. I wasn't there. But there have been other instances in other situations of there being apports in haunted homes, homes with poltergeist activity, or just, you know, all sorts of things. Now, I've opened myself up to the paranormal. I did years ago, and I do it every day. I'm like, bring it on. I love it. I am open to it. I'm a believer, but I am skeptical as well. I will question anything that seems odd or unusual, and if I can find a solution for it, then I'm like, all right with that, because I think those who believe that every little mouse fart is a ghost. I had one woman write to me one time, back when I was still doing the Ghost Geeks things with a couple of girlfriends. She was all upset, felt her house was haunted because she and her boyfriend, they were very young too, very young people. Because in the winter time, suddenly there were ladybugs on her house, and she thought it meant her house was haunted. And I had to tell her, sweetheart, I live in a 100-plus-year-old Victorian house, and your house is not haunted. It's just winter, and those little bugs come in to a warm place for the winter. People get themselves all worked up about a lot. I like to try to be skeptical. So then when I can't figure something out, it has more meaning. Now, any of you who have hung out with me, know me at all, you've seen me wearing this necklace. Okay? Now, this necklace is very special to me. I've added something extra to it recently, and I don't know if it still has the same magic with the extra piece. I may remove it. But this necklace, it's very strange. I get so many comments on it when I'm out in public, just strangers coming up to me and talking to me about it. Men, particularly young men, seem really, really fascinated by it. And it started out, my stepmother gave me it's like a ball chain necklace, and it had this on it. It was something a friend of hers makes. It's a glass, you know, cabochon or whatever, flat on the back, rounded on the front, and the word says dream. Now, I've never been one to be into all this, you know how there's lots of stuff for the home. It says dream, love, hope, faith, whatever. I mean, they're fine. I have no problem with them. It's just not, it's not me. If I found one that said surrender, I would love it, because the word surrender has a very important meaning to me. Perhaps I'll go into that another time. But I like the way the back looks, and the older it's gotten, and it's silver, I guess. I don't know if you can really tell. I've got a lot of light coming in from a window. But it's just taken, it has a really interesting texture, and it's taken on really interesting colorations. So I wear it with that out. Now, originally, it was that, and then I added this stone. And it's a raw piece of turquoise. It's not tumbled and shiny. And it's very, very interesting to me. The color is great. And it has all this darker striation in it. It's a really neat piece. And I added this in recently, which is a shinier, tumbled turquoise as well, I believe. Although I wonder sometimes if it isn't a dyed piece. I hate the dyed minerals. I want to see the piece raw. I usually don't care so much for the polished ones. I like the beauty of that raw. This grew in the earth, and it came out of the earth, and here it is, and it's ancient, and I love it. It has more meaning to me than something that's dyed and shiny, and try to make it pretty for, you know, people that want bright colors and shiny things. Again, nothing wrong with that. It's just not me. So this necklace is important to me because these two stones are both apports. When I was living at my other place here in Fayetteville, Arkansas, very small duplex, I got a lot of apports. Most of the things that I have in my little collection of apports came from when I lived at that duplex. I don't know who it was or what the deal was. Do y'all remember the little tiny socks, the baby socks that I found over the course of maybe a month? I randomly found 3 baby socks. One suddenly appeared at my feet in a grocery store. The other 2 showed up in my home just in the middle of the floor. Like I'd be in the room, no baby sock. I'd walk out of the room, come back, baby sock in the floor. No babies or children had been there. I have never had a baby or a child. You know, it was a mystery. It was kind of funny. I felt like somebody was messing with me. And even though the foot was a little bit different sizes on them, when you lined them up, they were all exactly the same size. Those were apports. I don't know what else they could have been. These stones were apports. They would appear at my feet, either in my house, or I think this turquoise one that I like the best. I think that one was somewhere where I was out and it wasn't there, and then I looked down and it was there. So they have great meaning to me because I feel like they're little gifts from the afterworld, from somebody on the other side, perhaps. Now, there is a phenomenon, you know, there's Christianity. A lot of y'all know how I feel about that. I'm not going to go in it because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. There are a lot of people that are very, very sincere, and they're very loving, good people, and they're Christians. And I feel bad when I say anything negative about Christianity. But the great part of my experience with Christianity was what I grew up with, which was lunacy. It was lunacy. Absolute, like, mental illness, crazy lunacy. I have issues with it. But there are lots of little wackadoo offshoots. Besides, you know, you have Catholic and Baptist and Methodist and Pentecostal and whatever. You have all these different denominations. But then there are little non-denominational little offshoots. And they're doing their own thing. And a lot of them, they don't realize it, but they're doing magic. A lot of them are performing magic, and they are dabbling in the occult, which they will be so angry and accusatory towards everybody else for dabbling in the occult. But a lot of the things that are happening at some of these little churches are definitely occultic, which to me does not mean something bad. But some of these churches there is, and you could look it up here on YouTube, there are churches where they are having tons of apports. Gold flakes that are appearing on people's skin, like their skin is oozing little gold flakes. They will sometimes have a Bible at the altar, the pulpit, that is oozing oil, where it's dripping off the pulpit, and I guess they think it's a holy oil or like an anointing oil or something. I don't think they ever have this shit tested. And they also, one of the things that appears are little rhinestones, well, not rhinestones, they claim they're jewels. Callie. So a lot of these little churches, or some of them, are having these apports, but it's not rhinestones, although I don't think they're having these things tested. I don't know. It's all very hanky to me. Hanky, because it will claim they are jewels, rubies and emeralds, and they'll show you these like cut gemstones that are showing up, coming out of the air, like falling out of the air. They've got gold on their skin. There's oils that are coming out of their Bibles. And all of this stuff, really, it's quite occult. And it is probably very much against, really, what traditional Christians should be having happening. But they're fascinated by it, and they feel like it is a gift directly from God, from the angels. Who am I to say they're wrong? It's interesting. It has not really been looked into much by mainstream paranormal folks. It's just something the Christians that are in these little groups will film it and throw it on YouTube. And it's interesting for sure. And there's little statues of Ganesh all around the world there for a while, about 30 years ago. You put a little bowl of milk in front of him, and he would suck it up through his not his snout, his trunk. But that's evil, because that was Ganesh. So anyhow, I started, when I got to my last place that I lived in here in Fayetteville, I started having these apports. These stones, and I've got them all in this little thing, except for the socks. I still own the socks, but they don't go in the little box. I thought this is a nice little place to keep these strange little gifts from the invisible world. I don't know if it's my spirits that are with me all the time, like Max and my granny and grandpa and my various family, or... Now in my little box here, there is a green, sort of a jade looking stone. Because of the lighting in here, I'm not sure you can really see how beautiful it is. Pretty little stone. This is another thing that I just found somewhere. It does not have a little metal finding on it that would allow me to hang it from a necklace. It's just as is. It is polished, but it's translucent and so beautiful. I don't even mind that it's polished. I don't remember the details of where I was at when I found this. It seems like I was in a parking lot, and just there it was at my feet. Wasn't there, then it was there. This little earring, although it is beaded, and some of you may know I used to be quite the proficient beader. I used to make a lot of earrings and such. I wish that would focus, but it doesn't wanna. I never ever made any of these. This is a store-bought, and it's a clip-on, and I don't wear clip-ons. I've never seen it before in my life. But one day, the person I was with at the time, living with, came out of his little man cave room and said, "Is this yours? Did you lose an earring?" He found it on the middle of the floor, in that room, which was a cluttery room, granted, but neither one of it, there was nothing at all in that place when we moved in, and this had been a year or more after we moved in. We almost never had anyone in the house. We don't even know anybody that wears, you know, these old lady clamp-ons. So it was really strange. That just showed up. Some of you may know I'm a hoodoo practitioner, and I practice and work in magical ways. So I had the room that was formerly the man cave became my temple. It became my room for creating magic and for honoring my ancestors and for honoring the saints and the spirits that I was becoming acquainted with and learning to work with. It was a very special room. Everyone loved to be there because it felt so nice. It felt so awesome. I cleared it very frequently. I did a banishing ritual because there would be so much activity in there and so much energy that I really didn't want it spilling out into the house. So I tried to keep it a very positive, very clean, good place. But and I work with a folk saint called the Santissima Muerte, or Santa Muerte, and a lot of people laugh when they see the figurine. Oh, it's not a figurine, it's something I made, a little statue of her, because it looks like the Grim Reaper in a red sequin dress. And I imagine she came before the Grim Reaper, and the Grim Reaper is probably based on her. If any of you saw American Horror Story, the season with, gosh, was it the one in the nut house? I think it was the one, Asylum, that had the female in black, the black wings, who would come and gather people. She was sort of a reaper herself. That's pretty much her. It's a kind, motherly figure who is the queen of the underworld, and she is all of our mothers. Everyone who has died, she becomes their mother. She comes to get you before you go through the actual pain and misery of the actual death. She scoops you out and leaves the body to finish dying. And she's a very powerful figure. She's very, very benevolent, and she will help anyone who asks. She doesn't look down on people and say, "No, nothing for you. You're a sinner." She prostitutes in Mexico like her a lot, and cab drivers, anybody that works at night. And yes, I said cab drivers. Cab drivers. So I had a candle going for her, and I had her goblet of water in front of her, and I had been doing some sort of heavy duty, I think it was love work. I was doing some love work with her, and someone who was visiting my home was up there checking things out, and he said, "What's this?" And he picked it out of my glass of water, and what it is wax. It's this perfect little, and it's gotten a little scuffed up over time. It was very smooth and shiny. It's just this little dollop. It looks like a butterscotch candy. And it was the most perfect, round, beautiful little thing. And it was floating in the top of her glass of water. I had nowhere in my magic room or in my house. And if you see the curtain moving, that's Callie running back and forth. She's not used to those being down, and she thinks it's fun to run underneath them. It leads into my hallway. I had no candles in my magic room or in my home that are this color. They were all like red and black and blue and, you know, nothing like this. And even if I had a candle like this, how would this one little dollop get in her glass? Someone, one of my hoodoo mentors, told me that that was the negativity she had gathered up the negativity and plooped it into the glass to kind of neutralize it. It doesn't feel negative to me. It just makes me feel kind of loved and neat when I pick it up and look at it, because I feel that it was from her for whatever reason. So I keep that little bit of wax. There is, I'll save the quirkiest for last. No one messed with my purse. I lived with someone who was he was funny but sort of serious and would never do something like this. He wasn't one for practical jokes at all. I used to collect coins. I still have a small coin collection. It's not worth anything really. It's just foreign coins because I like stamps, foreign stamps. So I started getting cheap foreign coins. Don't anybody break into my house. It's not worth it, trust me. But I hadn't had it out in years. I hadn't touched it, hadn't done anything with it. And even if I had, I would have known these were mine. In the bottom of my purse one day, and no one has access to my purse except for that one person who would not have done anything like this because he was too busy doing other stuff. There were these two very large coins. And they're both rather tarnished. This one, let's see if I can get into enough light to read it. 1 cent, Canada, 1918. 1918. And the other one is a Jamaican coin from 1968. 1 penny. They're both 1 cent, but very large. And that has Queen Elizabeth on it. No idea. Just showed up in the bottom of my purse one day. Very quirky, very random. These coins have some age on them. They have been used. Think about cleaning them up sometime, but that's how they came to me. Now my last one, struggling to get it out of the box. My last one is a little press-on nail. I believe that was a pinky. Try not to talk about this person much, but y'all know I was living with this person and he's quirky and funny, and one year he and myself and a female friend of ours at the time decided to go together to a Halloween party, and we were dressing up as, we live in Washington County in Arkansas, which is actually a really nice place. But it is, you know, county in Arkansas. It was her idea to be the housewives of Washington County. And, you know, like the TV shows, very over the top and sort of stereotypical of the area we live in. So he said fine, he was up for it. He got really into shopping for his gown, like a dress. He wanted to be the classy one. So he had a Marilyn Monroe wig on, and oh, and to top it all off, we had Billy Bob teeth to wear. We had different roles. We were different types of women, but then the Billy Bob teeth. You know, it was funny. He had some high heel shoes on that he picked out himself at a thrift store, and he wanted the nails and everything. And he almost has like a fetish for the French cut or French manicure nails. His mother and his sister have them. He always wanted me to have them. He'd pay for me to go get them, and then I'd paint over them with like purple polish or something. He'd get really mad at me. But that's old news. So he had these nails. He learned to hate them very quickly, and he was like, how do you women stand all of this stuff? You can't do anything. And like a lot of guys do. They're like, screw this. This is so uncomfortable and weird. And so the first thing he did when we got home was to peel those nails off and put them in the garbage. I watched him doing it, putting them in the kitchen garbage. He just hated them. And albeit he was very funny in the costume, he does not make a pretty woman, and which made it extra funny. And then I don't remember how long it was, a day or two, not longer than a week, but probably more than one day later. Where he was working, he had to take home all these little slips of paper and these envelopes and write a little handwritten thank you note to his customers that he had had at this business. Anyone he had dealt with, a thank you note, put it in a hand-addressed envelope and send it to them saying, thank you so much for stopping by. If there's ever anything else I can do for you, this is my name, you know, whatever, let me know. And it was such a hassle. He would work so long and then come home and have to do these things. And it was such a pain in the ass. So I would usually say, let me help you. And I would address the envelopes and he would write the little note. So, and it was like one of the few little couples things that we did. So we would get all comfy up on the bed with pillows all behind us and little lap desks, you know, the ones that's like a piece of thin wood and then something underneath to buffer it, like a bean bag kind of stuff. So we got on the bed with a couple of those, and we're working away, and I hear this little tick, and I see out the corner of my eye something from about the middle of the room, so it'd be about 4 feet up, just fell onto his lap desk, right onto the paper he was writing with, and it was that little nail. I don't know if somebody was teasing him, being like, you big girly man, you know, or here, you need to put these back on. And you're like, I don't know what it was. It felt very humorous. He was freaked out. But to me, I'm like so open to this sort of stuff, these experiences, that I thought it was great. And I saved the nail. He was freaked out by it. He didn't want to touch it, look at it. He didn't want anything, he didn't want it near him. He didn't want to see it sitting someplace, because it freaked his shit out to see that little nail. Because he too saw it fall right in front of his face from nowhere, from the middle of the room. So those are reports. They come in many different guises, but to me they're always fascinating, and they're always very welcomed items into my life. Now, since I moved out of that apartment, I have had no more reports. None in the grocery store, none in the parking lot, none in my home, just nothing. But I also have not been practicing much magic here. What little I've done has been more mental, without the props and the things. So I don't know, and I don't have as much spiritual energy here as I had in my old place. My old place got, because I guess because of the magic, it got so active. I would hear, and it was a small place, but I would hear the TV on in the other room, or think I did, or I'd hear people in the living room talking, and I would hear music coming from the living room. But it was all, to me, it was all very nice. It felt very nice, and I'm the first one to pick up on something negative, and it was not negative. It was just, sometimes I'd go in there and peek around the corner, and there'd be no TV, no more music, no more talking, and I'd be like, okay, carry on. And I just, you know, go away. And I lived around all these old people. Everybody around me was very old, and nobody listened to music, really, not so anybody else could hear it. And people weren't standing around outside my windows. It was a very active place, and I really missed that. It felt great. But that's where my apports came from. And even at that, if those are the last ones I get, I've gotten way more, and I bet you've gotten. It's interesting. Tell me your stories if you've ever had something like that happen. Bye.